Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Free Black Women's Library Reading Club meetup for October. Thank you all so much for being here. The library meets once a month on Zoom on the last Sunday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Feel free to drop your name in the chat, your pronouns, let us know where you're tuning in from. But yeah, every month we pick a different book written by a Black woman or a Black non-binary author, and we discuss the book. And oftentimes we do have the author of the book present with us to talk to us about the book as well. And Susana Morris is going to be here very soon to talk to us about positive obsessions. So my name is Ola. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a little congested right now. So I'm sorry for that. I have a cold that I caught from my daughter, but either way, I'm here tuning in from Brooklyn, New York City, where the Free Black Women's Library is located. If you're ever in Brooklyn, please come pay us a visit. We have over 5,000 books written by Black women at the library, as well as comic books, graphic novels, zines, and other types of literary ephemera. We also have writing workshops, art classes, different type of political panels, and teach-ins from anything from political prisoners to reproductive justice to abolition. We have a period pantry, a free store, a backyard garden with medicinals and herbs. And we have our collection, which is done through a trading system. So to check out books from the library, it works through a trading system where every book you bring, you get to take a book. As long as it's written by a Black woman writer, you can trade. And then that book that you take, you can keep for all time, or you can bring it back and trade it for something else. Um, so yeah, how is everybody doing? Um, has everyone had a chance to read the book? If you haven't, that's okay. But please feel free to let me know if you read the book. Hey, Roslyn. And also, if you are familiar with Octavia's work before you read the book, were you familiar with her work? I've been a fan of Octavia for about 2 decades now. So as soon as this book came out, I just had to jump right on it, child. Um, there's a book that came out 2 years ago called A Handful of Earth, A Pocket Full of Sky, which I really like. If you're an Octavia person, we need names for ourselves. What do we call ourselves? Octaviettes. If you're an Octavia, if you're a member of Octavia's brood, please, yes, exactly. Please read A Handful of Earth, A Pocket Full of Sky. Please read that book. It's gorgeous. It is not a memoir in the same way that, well, it's not an autobiography in the same way that this one is, whereas that one focuses on her writing and what kind of drove her to write. This one gets a little bit more personal with her family and things like that. So, and it's a much quicker read. It's really short and it's beautifully has a beautiful layout, graphic design, illustration, and whatnot. So I recommend that. Um, and I think those are the only, well, no, those aren't the only two books that focus on her, a person. There's some other ones, but mm-mm. There's a troll in here. Excuse me, y'all. Yep. Goodbye. These people. Hold on, I just need to keep a record of this name. I don't know why y'all do this. Like, go play Fortnite or something. I'm just gonna take a little screenshot. All right. You send the report to Zoom. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah. So Susanna will be here. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, Sylvia. Hi. Did you have your hand raised? The person who
I
came
don't
in
think
with the
so.
racist troll, they used your name for some
Oh,
reason.
really?
But I kicked them out.
Oh,
Their
sorry
name is
about that,
also
but no,
Sylvia Maleva, but
no, that
thank you for
wasn't
putting
me.
your camera on. That's why I ask people to put their cameras on,
Yeah, yeah.
because when
No
your
worries.
camera's not on, you're a suspect.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Iowa. All right. All right. So if folks want to share their name, their pronouns, and where you're tuning in from, if you feel comfortable sharing that info, and let us know about your first introduction to Octavia's work. What was it? What was the first thing you read by her, and how did you feel reading it? I can go first. My first introduction to Octavia was a book called Clay's Ark, and Clay's Ark was horrific to me. It actually gave me nightmares, but it also made me want to continue reading her work because I was like, this woman's mind is out of control. And I'd always been interested in science fiction. I watched Star Trek, I watched Twilight Zone, and all those different things, but there was never, I never saw myself in any of those stories. I never really saw Black people in those stories, right? The concept of racialized horror, I feel like within media, we definitely need to give a shout out to Jordan Peele for that, for giving us that. But this was a long time ago, probably before he was born, right? So I was very excited that, oh wow, a Black woman wrote this. What's going on? And then I read Kindred and Fledgling and Parable of the Sower. And wow, see, I just ate up everything. I ate up everything. And it's just the only book I haven't read is Survivor. And I do have it, but I haven't read it yet. So I'm very curious. Hi, Sue. Thank you for being here. We're
Thank you
just
for
talking
having
about
me.
oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Can y'all hear her? How come I can't hear you?
I can hear her.
Yeah. What is
It's
going on?
weird.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
I use my headphones. Okay. Go ahead. Talk now and see if I can hear you now.
Hello.
Yes.
All right. All right.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Awesome. So yeah, we were just talking about our first introduction to Octavia. People were sharing in the chat as well. And I was
Hmm.
saying that my first intro was Clay's Ark. And even though it scared,
Oh,
yeah, even though it scared the living
yeah.
daylights out of me and I had nightmares, I still continued to read her work because became so fascinated with this woman, this Black woman who was writing sci-fi. Because up until that point,
Hmm.
I definitely had associated it with Black women not really being in that genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I kind of became obsessed and read everything. I could get my hands on. The only
Mm-hmm.
one I haven't read is Survivor, which I do have a copy of, but I haven't read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I read Mind of My Mind, um, Dawn, Wild Seed, Parable Sower, Parable Talents, and so on. So yeah. But
You got to get on Survivor. It's complicated, but I enjoy it.
yes, yes indeed. Yes indeed. So how are you doing? Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all spending your Sunday evening with me. I'm honored to be here. I'm well. It's been a fun ride. The book has been out for a couple of months, and so it's been really dope being able to share the work with everybody because Octavia is so beloved. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. So how did this whole process begin for you? Like what was your first introduction to Octavia and how did this book come to be?
So I first discovered Octavia's work. For me, it was Parable of the Sower in about 1996. I was in high school and I went to the library and like you, I was reading science fiction, but I didn't really see myself reflected in it. And so I go to the library. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, so I go to the Lauderdale Lakes branch. And I had been going like every weekend and just taking everything off the shelf in the science fiction and fantasy section. And then one day I go and there is a book kind of facing out, and it's Parable of the Sower, the mass market paperback edition from the early 90s. And there's all these really beautiful illustrations from this illustrator named Jude Palancar. And it's a Black woman with like, kind of her hands upturned. I just was like, I grabbed it, I borrowed it, I read it, it changed my life. So, when I went on to, become a professor and all of that, my focus has always been on Black women's literature, really. And so I would teach Kindred or Parable of the Soul or what have you in various classes to the point where I was like, no, actually, I'm an Afrofuturist. And I really just want to talk about science fiction and
Uh,
fantasy written by Black folk. And yeah, I just wanted to know more about her intellectual process. I'm nosy. Why did you do what you did the way you did it? And so she was pretty private. There are many interviews out there about her, where, she would talk about, her process to a certain degree. And there are interviews that you can watch on YouTube, but I wanted to go to the archive. And so that's how this book was born.
and when you say that you identify as an Afrofuturist, what does that mean?
Yeah, so for me, Afrofuturism is a cultural movement and it's an aesthetic. And it sort of posits that Afro diasporic cultural practices are central to the continuance of human society. For human beings to exist, we must have African diasporic ways of knowing and being. So,
Ooh, ooh.
yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah,
indeed. I
clocking
love
it.
that.
Yes, yes. Mhm, mhm.
I love that so much. And in your teaching of Afrofuturist practices, within the academic setting, do you find the academy to be receptive to the theory? Like how is it placed within cultural theory or is it placed within literature?
So I'm a cultural critic. I'm also a Black feminist scholar. And so all of that is connected for me. So particularly in the spheres that I move in, yeah, we like Black people in the future, queer Blackness, let's do it. It's not an issue. Now, I've been a professor for almost 20 years at this point. I know, but I've been a professor for a long time. And when I first started out, I remember, as I was sort of pivoting, because I kind of started out a bit more traditional in quotations. I was always a Black feminist theorist, but I studied Toni Morrison and Paul Marshall and Jamaica Kincaid, and folks that were like, oh, yeah, Toni Morrison, obviously, if you haven't read anybody, of course you've read Toni Morrison, right? Um, in the past when I would tell people I teach African American literature, they go, Beloved is such a great book, or I'm like, okay, I didn't even say, I mean, it is, and I love it, but also you're telling on yourself. So in the beginning, when I was in more traditional spaces, yes, people were like, science fiction. That's curious. That's interesting. But where I am now, I teach at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. I am not even the only Afrofuturist in my department. So
Oh,
I'm in a
wow.
place where, Afrofuturism is just a thing that we do. And the the field has grown in so many ways, right? And there's the academic arm, and then there's, everyday, everybody can be an Afrofuturist. You don't have to be a scholar to be an Afrofuturist. And also, I love a label because I'm a literary critic, but like if you want to be about Black futures, whatever you want to call it, I love it. It's really about the work. And so Afrofuturism, like I said, is a cultural movement. So it shows up in the academy, but like Janelle Monáe's an Afrofuturist, right? Missy Elliott's an
Right.
Afrofuturist. You can be an Afrofuturist city
No, y'all listen.
planner
Come on,
or
hold on, y'all, hold on. I accommodate. Accommodate.
oh, okay.
All right, y'all listening? Yeah. Hey,
Okay. Um, you can be an Afrofuturist, anything. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want from that perspective, knowing that we're centering African diasporic practices.
Sorry, I'm just Ah, okay. Sorry about that. So you said that you went to the archives. Tell us about that process, because I know that from what I understand, I haven't visited our archives, but
Hmm.
from the people I know who have, they've said that Octavia was kind of almost a hoarder, like she kept
Low
everything.
key, low key. Yeah. She
So how
has
was
a
that process of like
voluminous.
going through
Yeah.
her things?
Yeah. So the thing is, her archive is at the Huntington in San Marino, California, not far from where she's from. She's from Pasadena. And she kept everything. Every receipt, every diary entry, her mother's diary is in the archive. So, when I went in, I already had a kind of perspective and a point of view that I was like, I'm interested in her sort of intellectual thought because you could do 10 biographies on Octavia. Her life is rich and interesting. I'm like throwing it out there. I'm like, who wants to write a California um, biography? Who wants to write one about her travels? Who wants to? I mean, there's so many different versions, but I'm like, okay, I'm interested in the interior lives of Black women. I want to know what she was thinking, how she thought about her work, how she went about it. When she got up, what did she do? Those kinds of things. So that was my perspective. So I looked at everything, but I was like, okay, this is fascinating, and I want to come back and look at this, but this is really what I'm focusing on. So I had to kind of, you know,
Yeah,
make choices.
yeah. And how long was that process for you? Because this book is really dense and really detailed. And I just have to shout out, like, your writing style is so
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you. Oh, thank you.
Like the nerd in me, the word nerd in me was getting my life. Like, it's so
Thank
good. It's
you.
so
That
good.
means a lot because I worked in the book for 5 years, and when you're laboring
Oh,
in the
wow.
vineyard, you just like, even this time last year when I knew the book was going to be out, now would already be out. Like I don't even know how it's gonna happen. If I could go back in time to October of 2024, I'd be like, girl, you did, keep going. Yeah.
Mm. So it was a challenge.
I've never written a biography before, right?
Okay.
I guess I can't say I'm not a biographer. I am a biographer because I wrote a biography, but it's not that's not what I studied, right? Like, I talk to historians. I'm a part of a Black feminist biographers collective. So
Oh.
convened by Tanisha Ford and Ashley Farmer, who are both really, dope
Oh,
biographers.
yes.
Yes. And they're both historians, and almost
Those
everybody
are
else, it
heavy
was
hitters, baby.
heavy hitters, baby. And I think it was me and Alexis Pauline Gums being like, are we the only two like lit crit people? Is it us? Are we the ones? And so of course that was a super dope group to be a part of. But yeah, I'm like, they're trained in a very particular kind of way. And I'm like, tell me about, you know, when you got up and you walked around your neighborhood and you noted all the flora and the fauna. I want to know about that. And why did you decide to read this book? And so it's a very, I have a perspective that I'm looking at, so
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does make sense. I just got Ashley Farmer's book on Queen Mother Moore. I'm so
Yes.
excited to read that book.
Yes.
Queen Mother Moore does not get talked about enough. So I'm so happy that that book is out in the world.
And
And
Ashley's
Tanisha
a super
Ford.
dope historian, and Tanisha with her book that came out recently, and I know she's
Mm-hmm.
working on another biography, and so it's just a really
Yeah,
wonderful time for Black feminist biography.
yeah, yeah. So so since you didn't consider yourself a biographer initially, how did it come to be that you got to write this book about Octavia?
So I have been an Octavia Butler scholar, right? And ironically enough, for many years, like 15 years maybe at this point. And I remember my colleague Jerry Canavan, shout out to Jerry. He wrote a book. It's called Octavia Butler. It's very scholarly. It's a literary biography, meaning he spent probably about a decade in the archive and he went through and he
Oh,
read all the different versions of every book. And there are multiple versions of every book in the archive. Okay. There are
really?
multiple versions of Kindred. There are multiple versions of every short story. She was a constant rewriter. She was like, testing things out. Should I do it this way or that way? So Jerry went in and close read every single thing. And so when that book came out, I was invited to review it for an academic journal. So I'm geeked. I read it and I'm like, wow, Jerry really did it. This is amazing. And I even wrote in my review, whoever writes the next biography, like the first major biography that trade, they got it cut out for them, and that was kind of the seed that was planted that got me on the
Mm,
road to writing this because like, oh yeah, I want to get back into that archive. I want to get into the archive. I was inspired. And of course, there's been this renaissance, right? Of attention towards Octavia that's very well deserved. She didn't always get that attention throughout her career, In the
right.
last decade or so of her life, yes. But talk about laboring in the vineyard. In the beginning, she was not getting any kind of attention, really, not the attention that she felt she deserved.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Outside of your beautiful, brilliant writing, another thing I really enjoyed about this book is how it really humanized Octavia for me. I since first encountering her work, I've definitely held her in high regard, and I still do,
Mhm.
right? Of
Of
course.
course. Of course.
High regard, prophet, genius, brilliant, just iconic literary everything. But reading this book and reading about her loneliness, her neurodivergence, her sadness, her financial struggles,
Ooh.
I was like, are we the same person?
Relatable content. Relatable content. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So were there anything in your research and in your discoveries, were there any things that you uncovered that kind of surprised you or had you um a little bit of kind of like shifted your perspective on her as a person?
As I was researching the book, even before I got in the archive, watching an interview with her, and it, it, it might have been an interview with Charlie Rose, but an interview where she was being described as the grande dame of science fiction, which was a term that was used to describe her in Essence magazine. And she'd been published in Essence many times. Essence really like was bigging up her work from the beginning, but she did not like that title. She was like Grand Dame, like yikes. I don't want to be uh I don't want to be described in that way, right? And I feel like that was part of the like so that I go into the archive and I see like it invited me to like not fangirl. You can't be a fangirl when you're being a biographer, right? You have to like be kind of
Mm,
clear-eyed. I don't mean neutral. I keep on saying I have a perspective because I do. I don't believe in neutrality, right? I'm like I love Octavia. Her work is important. I want to amplify her, but I'm not like putting her on a pedestal, right? So even seeing that interview initially at the beginning was just like, That's right. She's a person. And so, with that being said, of course, I knew she was a person before that, but getting in the archive and just seeing the rawness, how hard her life was really until she was about 40. That's when things started to pop off, late 30s, early 40s. By then, she had already published half a dozen novels, pretty much, right? But the financial strain was so severe. And anybody that knows a writer, unless you have another day job, it's really hard being a writer. It's still hard even if you have another day job. But I mean hard in terms of how you're gonna pay your rent, how you're gonna go to the dentist, how you're gonna all these things, right? So it was really hard reading about how difficult her life was. I didn't know the extent of the poverty, right? She would mention, oh yes, that I struggled or I had a hard time, but she wasn't telling people in interviews, like I have to pawn my typewriter, to pay my rent, and then I hope we could get it back later. And she wasn't doing, she wasn't gonna expose
Mm,
herself that way, right? Um, Also, it was difficult reading, and I was surprised, although I shouldn't be surprised because I too am a writer, about how hard she was on herself. She was extremely hard on herself. I don't mean simply having high standards, but sometimes the standards were impossible. And I'm in the archive like, girl, this is beautiful. Like whatever, she'd draft something in her notes, and then she would annotate her notes, and some of her marginal comments would be so severe. And I would be like, you're one of one, Octavia. And so
mm.
that was difficult to see over and over and over again.
Aw. Yeah, there's definitely there was a certain point in the book where I actually felt myself tearing up because it did feel like she was just struggling so much with her art,
Hmm.
with her life, with her social connections.
Yeah.
And I hope that she did have moments of happiness and like pure joy.
Oh, yeah, I think she did. And I hope that I was able to convey that, right? I mean, she did have a melancholy sensibility at times, but she found
Yeah.
joy in all kinds of very mundane things and really wonderful things, right? Once her career was on and popping, she liked being brought places. She liked
Yes.
being entertained. She liked being the center of attention sometimes, right? Sometimes she was like, oh,
Nice.
this is a lot, too many people. She was very introverted. She needed her space to recover. But she liked being lauded. She liked winning awards. She loved winning awards. And she liked money too. I don't mean in a
Yes.
capitalist kind of way, but in a like, I like to survive and live well, right? Um, she liked hanging out with her friends. She liked going to the movies. She liked critiquing movies. She loved reading books. She loved researching. Like the reason the book is called Positive Obsession is because she could not stop doing what she did. She could not stop researching. She could not stop reading. She could not stop writing. It was a great joy. It was also a source of pain, right? Obviously, when you're an artist, it's like, oh, it's a double-edged sword. But she delighted in the work that she did. She delighted in thinking about these questions. How am I going to hook the reader? She would often write things like, I need something sexy to hook the reader. Like, oh, I need something. And sexy for her could mean lots of different things. It didn't necessarily mean sex, but it could be sensual, like embodied. So how am I going to
Hmm.
get the reader engaged? What's the sort of struggle or question? The fact that this is someone who was an independent researcher who would go on research trips, for example, like when she was preparing to write the Xenogenesis trilogy, also known as Lilith's Brood, he went on a research trip with a group from UCLA to the Amazon because she was like, okay, I'm writing about the Amazon. I need to go there. So I really know what
Uh,
the Amazon is like. What? What is the sweat like on your skin when you're there? What does the water feel like? What's the temperature? What does the landscape look like? Could she have read a book or watched a video? Yes, and she did. But also, she went to the Amazon. She went to Peru, climbed Machu Picchu. She kayaked. She was doing all this stuff because that was her air almost. So she enjoyed those things, right? It's more, I really want to convey that these were systems oftentimes that made her life hard, right? So I don't even necessarily like the term neurodivergence because I think that's actually probably the standard. I think most of us, the sort of
Thank
mythical
you.
ideal of, I'm not that kind of doctor, but I just feel like that's probably the case, right? So there's nothing wrong with how she saw things or how she moved, but there was not the containers that were necessary for her to thrive, right? She was thriving despite the systems that she was moving in, right? everybody should have enough food to eat, enough water to drink, clear, you know what I mean? Like, so the things that were happening to her were largely these bigger obstacles, right? That made her life hard, you know? And so I really, that's why it's the life and times, right? Because even though she was a person who was very focused, this is not a biography in which you're gonna get hot piping tea. She didn't really live that kind of life. She got up every day and she did this work and she thought about stuff. Now, she definitely had opinions and thoughts about people, and I write about that as well. But it was really about the enjoyment of this life of the mind. Yeah.
I love that. And I love what you said about neurodivergence because I feel like everyone's neurodivergent. Like,
So if we
and
all are, then what we
I feel like
diverging from? We are it.
right. I feel like everyone has their special interest. Everyone has their ways of being. Like, of course, it's a spectrum. I get that. But I don't know, especially when it comes to Black people, people who've been living under an oppressive system, there are
Hmm.
certain things that we have to adapt just as far as like survival strategies, like
Yeah,
masking,
absolutely.
like masking is a survival strategy. Like I'm not going
100%.
to ramble to you about Octavia because I'm not gonna do that at work because I'm like out to get fired. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Um,
exactly. And these are
yeah.
things that she had to deal with too. So, Octavia really struggled with school, with sort of traditional school. Um, Her report cards in elementary school and so on would be like, oh, Estelle, which was her middle name and what she went by at home. Estelle is a daydreamer. Estelle's not doing her work. Estelle is looking out the window. She's lazy. The fact, so that was one thing, right? So her lack of direction. And then the other thing that folks often commented on, both teachers, but also, people around that she grew up with, was her, she was very socially awkward, right? She was extremely shy. She was introverted. She was socially awkward. She was also 6 feet tall by the time she was in junior high, right? So this
Mm,
is a
I can't
recipe for
imagine.
disaster when we're already thinking about the ways in which Black women, and this is a woman who's born in 1947, right? So she's a baby
Mm,
boomer, how we are interpreted, right? When we move through space. If you're a quiet person, right? And I don't want to conflate quiet with introverted because those are two different things, right? But let's say you're reserved, because I'm an extrovert for sure, but I'm a pretty reserved person in, like, say, workspaces, right? And I have for sure over the years gotten like, you're very quiet, or you're unflappable. Nothing seems to bother you. Work. Not at the club. We're not at the lounge. I'm not at the coffee shop. We work together. And some people you work with are your friends. You can make work friends, like friends at work. And some people are like, wow, we work together, but like we become family. And other people, you just like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. And when it's Friday, you see them on Monday. And they don't follow you on social media, or you got them on restricted, like they can't see your close friends, like they
right.
don't need to know about that, right? But the perceptions about how Black women are embodied, how Black folk are embodied, right? Octavia was not the most femme person. She did not identify as a queer person. She did not identify as a lesbian, but she wasn't super femme. She was not doing a kind of traditional performance of femininity. And being tall, being dark skinned, Black women are already masculinized, whether or not we ourselves are performing masculinity, right? So folks were already, when she was a young person in high school, for example, this used to really irk her and make her very upset. She would go out with her homegirls, and sometimes adults would be like, oh, you're out with your mother? And they'd be pointing to her. Now, while she was very tall, it was very clear she was a kid, you know.
Mm,
But the sort of adultification that Black girls, and Black femmes go through, she was experiencing all of that. So she had to learn early on, like, okay, I can't always just fully be myself when I go into public spaces. But masking was difficult for her, and she was not always successful.
yeah.
Successful.
Yeah. My daughter is 6 feet and she's been 6 feet since like middle school, high school. And
Mm-hmm.
she used to
Mm-hmm.
complain about I'm only 5'7", but she
Mm-hmm.
used to complain about that all the time. She would like just walk around the house stomping her feet because she thought it would make her legs shorter.
Oh, bless.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mm,
she would tell me about how people would think that she was the oldest of her friends. Meanwhile, she's got this little baby face and she's the youngest. So I
exactly.
definitely see that still going on now. And I think it's made me sensitive to that when I meet people, when I
Hmm.
meet young people, to
Hmm.
make sure not to
Yeah,
adultify them, especially Black
exactly.
girls. So that's
It's
super
already being
important.
foisted, and this is like also she's growing up in a different era where there were um responsibilities, that sort of were socially expected earlier on, right? Okay, so you're in your early 20s, you're supposed to get married and start having children, right? Not that you can't do that today, but we prolong childhood, I think, as we should. But she wasn't experiencing that. It was like, all right, you're grown, and why are you so weird? Why can't you talk to people? Why is public speaking difficult for you? She had to go through hypnosis classes. She took public
Oh,
speaking courses. Many like she really had to work hard. So when you see the interviews in which she is regal and she has this deep, gravelly voice and she's very poised, she worked for that.
mm,
That wasn't natural, whatever natural means. She cultivated that persona over time. It was hard fought.
yeah. Yeah, she definitely looked very confident in all her
Oh yeah.
interviews. And
Oh
I
yeah.
love her voice and her measured tone that she takes her time giving her answers.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that appeals to me so much. So
Hmm.
to know that she worked for that, it's an inspiration.
You
As
work
somebody
for
who's very shy, who hates public speaking,
it. Hmm.
I look to her
But
as
look
a
at the
leader.
work you're doing, right? I mean, oftentimes folks who are shy or who like public speaking is not their thing, it's like, but y'all have stuff to say. It can't just be the people who are like yapping all the time, right? Those people need to speak to. We all need to speak. But like, you know what I mean? So I really wanted to emphasize that in the book that like the person that we saw at 45 or 50, which is I think true for all of us. I'm gonna be 45 in 2 months. I'm not the person I was when I walked into that library in 1996 and saw Parable of the Sower. Obviously 30 years has passed, but like I was shy. I was awkward for sure. I felt all kinds of stuff being a big girl, being the daughter of immigrant. Like I just had all kind of hangups, right? And when I talk to my students today, they're like, "Oh, Dr. Morris," I'm like, "Oh, I had to fight for this. I created this person. It is who I am
Yes.
now." But I did a lot of work to be like, I'm not gonna be scared out here. Y'all not finna punk me. Like I'm gonna take up space. And Octavia had to do that work to take up space because people were making assumptions about her intelligence. I mean, particularly being a Black woman, the only Black woman for a long time in science fiction and fantasy, she called herself a dancing bear, meaning she was like an oddity. People were like, oh, there's a colored woman here. Wow, what do you write about? She's like, meanwhile, I'm one of one, right? So she had to kind of fortify herself to be in these spaces, as I think many of us can understand, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you this might be a kind of a corny question, but do you know if she engaged in any like spiritual practices? Like
So the thing about,
go ahead,
give
sorry.
me an example. No, give me an example.
I was gonna say the stuff that we're doing in the 2020s, um
2020.
mirror works, um stating affirmations every day, kind of just
Yeah.
hyping ourselves
Yeah,
up, like those
absolutely.
type of those type of ritualistic things that we do when we're kind of
Yes,
putting on our armor to go out into the world.
absolutely. She absolutely did that. Now, she was raised in a very kind of strict Baptist, kind of charismatic Baptist church, right? So, like, think long denim skirts, right? Nothing secular. Y'all know the long denim skirts, okay? The apostolic kind of vibe. Yes. Nothing secular, can't listen to secular music, dating is off limits, can't play cards, can't go to the movies, that kind of stuff. Once she sort of graduating high school, she's like, I'm good on that. She really stopped going to church, right? And, really for the rest of her life, she was more agnostic atheist. So she wasn't, really spiritual in that
Hmm.
way. But I include in the book, and you probably have seen on social
Yes.
media, that all throughout her her life, she had these affirmations that she would do. And before she even got to the affirmations part, she read a lot of like self-help books, what we today would call self-help books. So like Think and Grow Rich, how to make friends with influential people, those kinds
Ah,
of
yes.
books, because she's like, I don't know how to talk to people. I freeze up. I'm not sure about these social cues. We would use the language of social cues today. She didn't use that language. She's like, somebody says a thing, I don't know how to respond. I need to figure out how to do that because I want to have this particular kind of life and career. And so I include a 1988 note from one of her commonplace books. She had hundreds of them in her archive. Okay. And so she wrote, I shall be a best-selling writer. After Imago, each of my books will be on the bestseller list of the LA Times, New York Times, Publishers Weekly, Washington Post, etc. My novels will go on to the above list, whether publishers push them hard or not. And she underlined that. Okay. Whether I am paid a high advance or not, whether I ever win another award or not. This is my life. I write best-selling novels. My novels go on to the bestseller list on or shortly after publication. My novels each, underline, travel up, underline, to the top, underline, of the bestseller list, underline, and they reach the top, underline, and they stay on top, underlined, for months, at least two. She was very clear. Each of
Yeah.
my novels does this, so be it, see to it. And it goes on to,
Yeah.
she writes all kinds of things. I will buy my mother a house. I will do these things. I will fund scholarships for Black youth. Like she was very clear. Did all these things happen? No, many of these things happened, but she was clear. I mean, she wrote them in so many of the books, and she had hundreds of these books in which she, would write diary entries. She would note her budget for the month. She would draft letters that she would later on type, and then when she had a computer, put on her word processor and then her computer. Like she did all kinds of stuff there. But she put these manifestations. She put them on the covers. She put them on the inside, and they were fairly consistent. She would move some things around. Sometimes she put dollar amounts. I will have $1 million in savings, and it was like I'll have $10 million in savings. I know that's right. But she was very clear about like these are ridiculous, out of this world things for a person like her to want to achieve, and yet why not? She's not even supposed to be here, right? Like based on her background, who she knew or didn't know, and all of that. Like, so why not say exactly
Yeah.
what you want?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think my question is like, I wonder what it is that in her that gave her the that expansive way of thinking about herself, right? Especially in a world that's racist, sexist, anti everything who she is and what she's interested in as far as like being a writer, being a creative. Like what was the thing within her that kept thinking beyond what her
Yeah.
reality was? Like how did she
Yes.
maintain that, and where did that come from?
It was this inner drive. Now, it was cultivated by two important people, but honestly, like Octavia was one of one. Like there were so many no's that she got. Like for example, between 1971 and 1976, she did not publish anything until Pattern Master came out in 1976. So 5 years of no's, of steady rejections, and she's sending out short stories constantly.
Mm,
He sold two short stories in 1970 after being in the Clarion Writers Workshop in Pennsylvania. And then after that, nothing. And one of those short stories didn't come out until after her death. Okay. So she was like, I keep getting the door slammed in my face. I'm going to keep trying. It wasn't that it wasn't difficult. There were times, particularly in those early 1970s years, where she had even had suicidal ideation. So I don't even want to be like romantic about like, oh, it was great. And it didn't matter. It wore on her, but she felt that she had no other alternative. That's how she wrote about it in her diaries. That's how she talked about it with her friends and her colleagues. Like, I have to do this. The alternative is to not be here. So I must do
right.
this, whether or not I get the accolades. Now, was she pissed when she didn't get the accolades? Absolutely. Big mad, right?
Yeah.
Uh, But at the same time, she's like, I have to do this no matter what the outcome is, right? Because the producing the work is the thing, you know. Um, she also, I think, had this, even though she was very clear on systemic inequities, white supremacy, patriarchy, she was very clear about these large systems. She also was kind of like a singular force in some ways, right? So in the essay Positive Obsession, which is where I get the title from, which was originally published in Essence under a different title, but she talks about when she went to conventions and things like that or signings, and sometimes Black folk will come up to her and be like, well, I didn't know I could do this. I never knew there were other Black people doing science fiction. She's like, there doesn't have to be. You can be the first to do it. Because that didn't even come to her mind. Once her mother told her when she was a child, kind of offhandedly, maybe you can be a writer. Then she was going to be a writer. So her mother and her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, Stella Guy, who she's a junior in two ways. She's Octavia E. Butler. Her mother was Octavia Margaret Butler, and then her grandmother was
Mm,
Stella Guy. So Octavia Estelle. So she's named after her mother and her grandmother. And so those two women were like, yeah, you are very smart. Keep on reading, keep on doing it. She didn't come from like a family where there were a bunch of writers. They were very kind of like humble folks, working class roots. Her mother was a domestic, her grandmother was a domestic, one of her aunts was a nurse. Her uncles did landscaping work. Like they were, folks who traveled from northern Louisiana to California during the Great Migration. Um, but yeah, her mother said, well, maybe you'll be a writer. Now, did her mother want her to go to school, get a clerical certificate, and be a secretary? She did, because you need to get a good
yes.
government job and you can do the writing on the side. Amen. Right. So she defied her people in being like, actually, I'm going to try that for like 3 seconds. It's going to crush my spirit. And then I'm going to do something else.
Right.
But she didn't necessarily have the role models, and she was rebellious in a particular kind of way, in that, like, okay, I'm gonna blaze this trail, even though she didn't necessarily think of herself as blazing a trail. It was doing something she had to do, or else she wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
It was that deep.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels that deep when you read her work. And I love how you tied in all the um, her political interests and her political leanings and how they kind of reflect in her characters and in her stories. Because like I feel like it adds another layer to what's going on in the
Thank you.
story.
Yeah.
I always felt like her work was political, but I never really had an understanding as to how until I became like an adult and
Mm-hmm.
became an
Mm-hmm.
organizer and
Yeah.
activist
Yeah.
and just noticed the parallels,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about Black history, control, oppression. And I'm curious, and this might be a hard question, but do you have a favorite book of hers or a favorite
I
piece of her
do.
writing? Oh,
I
perfect.
do. I do. So, Wild Seed is my favorite novel. But the Xenogenesis trilogy is my favorite series. And I feel like we don't talk about Dawn, Imago, and adulthood rights enough. That's my
Okay.
take. Yes.
Dawn Imago. I think last I heard, I think Ava DuVernay got the rights to Dawn.
Yes. I just wonder what's going on with that, because I feel like that was before the writer's strike, if I'm correct.
It was.
and and then all the stuff that they've been doing with just like even just taking Black shows off of like HBO Max or whatever it's being called today. Is it just HBO? I don't know. So many of the platforms just kind of deplatforming Black art, right? Black shows and so on. And so I don't know that we're in the same, there doesn't seem to be the same energy around creating prestige television in general, but prestige Black television. So I hope Ava or
Yeah.
whoever else put it on YouTube. I don't know, like I want to
Yeah.
see it. I mean, I want to see how are you gonna make up the own color? Maybe it needs to be animation. I don't know. Somebody call me. I'm ready to talk to you about it. Like, one of y'all make it happen.
Yes, yes. So would you would you be a consultant on like a adaptation?
I would be happy to be. Call me.
Yeah.
I have ideas. And I
Yeah.
understand that books are different than their adaptations, right? You know what I mean? Like the book is a book. Um, but her work is really ripe for adaptation. It
I
really is.
agree. I
It's so
agree. I've always
cinematic.
it Truly, reading her book, I feel like I'm witnessing a movie in my mind from
Exactly.
beginning to end.
And who else can write a fight scene like Octavia E. Butler? Very few. Very
Yes,
few.
very few. And
Mhm.
the sex scene. Hello. Um
That too. Now that might be why it has to be on HBO or something because
yeah,
the sex scenes in her books are never just kind of straightforward, like "Mwah, we're whatever." It's usually some kinky
they're
stuff,
so
which I'm
weird.
here for. However, it might need to come on after 9 p.m. You know.
They're so weird. They're so weird.
Hmm.
Um if anybody has a question for Dr. Morris, please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat and I can read it if you don't feel like reading it out loud. I have like two more questions left, but I also
Hmm.
want to make space for other people who are here because it's not about me. It's about all of us being a part of Octavia's brood.
Indeed.
Let me check the chat, see what's being said in here. What are y'all's thoughts on reading the patternices in publication year order versus narrative order?
Oh, I've done both. Because they're published out of order, right? So Pattern Master is her first novel, but it's the last in the Patternist series. So I think it could be fun to do it. You may not want to do it in the same year, depending on how quickly you read. Also, these books are heavy, but I think it would be cool to, in kind of recent or quick, rather quick succession, so months apart or a year or so apart, do it both ways, right? Because to start out at the end, I think is almost always so interesting, because you see like the world is like really feudal. There's not really technology as we know it. And then you go and you read Wild Seed, you're like, how did we get here? Because Wild Seed is the
Mm-hmm.
prequel, right? I'm all about possibilities and beginnings. I think that's one of the reasons why I love Wild Seed. And I also just love Anyanwu. But Anyanwu is a very different character in my mind, right? So I don't know. That doesn't give answer your question. I'm like, do a both. Start have a book club. Talk with all your friends.
Yeah, I'm interested in an Octavia Butler book club. Um, what are great companion nonfiction texts to read alongside Butler's work?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's a question from Morel.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were complimenting me. My bad.
Oh, yes, definitely your book. But what are some
What's a
other
com-
great?
well, Jerry Canavan, if you're into something more academic, there's also Lionel George's oh my goodness, Handful
uh,
of Earth.
Handful of Earth, Pocket Full of Sky.
Thank
Love
you.
that.
First of all, a physically gorgeous book, right? And it's an artist companion. So there's that. If you have littles in your life or just young at heart, read Ibu Zoboy's middle grade biography of
Oh
Octavia.
yes, yes, we have that here.
There are also collections of interviews if you just want to hear her voice directly, not filtered through anybody else, right? There is I think it's called Essential Octavia Butler, that is um, edited by Consuela Francis. And then there's like the final
Ooh.
interview. Y'all have probably seen the final interview series. There's like lots of different authors that have that. And so there's a one with a very like beautiful illustration of Octavia. Some of the interviews overlap, but there are lots of ones that are not, ones that are just in either one. And so those are some good nonfiction places. There's 1.5 million academic articles, you know what I'm saying? Read those too if you want. But in terms of books, I would say those books.
What do you think about Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown?
Love it. Love it. Teach it. I think it's super a really interesting extrapolation. Octavia's work. I think Marie Brown's work in general. I mean, she touches on Octavia's work so often. I think that's a super dope. And I like to teach it in my undergraduate classes because I teach at a technical institute. And so I have a lot of engineers and so on, and they love science fiction. I don't have to convince them of anything. They're taking my class for fun. But I'm like, okay, so how can you bring this in? This is not simply for fun, although fun is great. But like, how might you take some of her teaching? Like, for example, in Lilith's Brood in the Xenogenesis trilogy, where she's talking about the human contradiction. So our intelligence, which is often at odds with our tendency to be hierarchical. If you're into science and engineering, how might you use that principle to guide your work? You know?
Yeah,
But yeah.
for sure. For sure. Thank you. Mariah or Maria, I'm not sure. You can go ahead. Tell me how to say your name properly. Maria.
Yes. Hi, I'm sorry. I am using my Maria is my friend, Dr. Maria McQuarter. My name is
Oh,
Christopher Stewart. I am using her Zoom link because I waited too late to register. So thank you. My name
okay.
is I'm an author. I'm from Washington, D.C. And thank you so much for writing this book and this that I think really is gonna help step it up for the next generation. As we know, I work in K through 12 in DC public schools, but also a professor at Syracuse and St. John's Universities in library and information science. And unfortunately,
Mhm.
these books, Octavia E. Butler, if we talk to our high school students, a lot of them do not know about her unless
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
giving them this knowledge, or
Mm-hmm.
some of the other Black
Mm-hmm.
Afrofuturists or
Mm-hmm.
Black intellectuals in the school. So I want to know, how has she sewn into your world as far as empowering you to teach differently, to even in your own personal world, as far as how you look at things differently after going into the archives? How have you changed from this research?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And thank you for your work. Um, so I mean, I write about how Octavia's work has become like a North Star for me. You know what I mean? Like, I really changed the trajectory of my career from being like, okay, I'm the scholar that studies these things. My first book was about family. And I jokingly say this, but it's true. I should have just gone to therapy, right? That's why I was writing about family. I had to work out my own stuff, you know? So I really one of the reasons why I'm an Afrofuturist and Octavia's one of the ultimate Afrofuturists is that we can use, and I'm preaching to the choir, we can use our cultural production to make real practical change always. Emergent strategy is an example of that. The work that you're doing here at the Free Black Women's Library, like, it is artistic work, and you're also creating a third space. You're creating community. You're doing all these things. Like, it has very practical applications while also being this really wonderful artistic space. Like, so I try to be that voice
Mhm.
in my very STEM focused world that I have been inhabiting pretty much my whole career. That you don't have to divorce your artistic sensibilities from the work that you're doing, you know, whether you're trying to learn how to build a bridge or whatever it is you're trying to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And I think that's one thing Octavia teaches me, and also Asada Shakur teaches me that as well. Asada
100%.
Shakur,
Mm-hmm.
who recently passed away on next September 25th, and we'll be
That's
honoring
right.
her here at the library on November 2nd, because that's the day that she was rescued from the prison industrial complex by her
Mm-hmm.
comrades, November
Mm-hmm.
2nd, 1979.
Good boy.
Who is that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's Roslyn. I was like, is that another troll?
Sorry about
Um,
that.
no, it's okay, Roslyn. Um, that thing about not separating your artistic self from your political self, from your activist self,
There's
not
no
separating your creative
separation.
self,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that integration is so important. And that's something I kind of struggled with for a while. Like as an artist, I felt like, oh, my art has to mean something. It has to be for a purpose. But if I do what feels authentic to me, then the purpose just finds itself. And I feel like that's what Octavia did, and that's also what Asada did. So I appreciate you saying that. That was a
Yeah,
little bit of a ramble, but I appreciate you saying
it
that.
was not, no.
Um, Samanga, tell me how to say your name correctly. I love that name.
Manga, but yes, thank you. Thank you. I haven't read the book yet, but I look forward to it. I came just as the inspiration and to just be in the energy of this person I admire, and thank you for your work. So I'm just gonna I think the question is, what, if anything, is like a message that maybe you're receiving from her, having spent so much time amongst her work and really her words? I'm so curious about her, prescience. And we talk about this kind of prophet-like ability that I think I relate to as a Black woman and as a writer. And I don't have the prolificness of this person. I get to look up to them, but we're in unprecedented times, and she saw some of it. And
Horrible,
yet
yeah.
now we're the ones here still in physical form and that have to, carry the mantle. And I
Yeah.
just wonder if there are any messages or thoughts any riffs, anything about this positionality.
Yeah, I mean, her work is, I think, rightfully called prescient, right? Or even prophetic or oracle-like. But she also pushed back against those kinds of designations, and I think would do so today, if I may be so bold. Um, because what she was actually literally a pattern master. That's one of her things, her hyperfixations, right? That she could look, she was a student of history. That's what she did her associate's degree in. And then she got like the equivalent of 10 PhDs through writing her books, right? Um, and so she would just look and see, for example, Ronald Reagan, a villain in so many of our lives, but Octavia E. Butler's arch nemesis. She hated that man with a fiery, burning passion. He shows up in her work many times, right? He is the inspiration for the politicians in the Parable series. He's the inspiration for Lilith's brood, right? That post-nuclear apocalyptic world that they live in is because she saw him on television talking about, um, winnable nuclear war, right? And so I think sometimes, and I'm not suggesting this is what you were doing, but sometimes when we talk about her as a prophet, it abdicates our own responsibility from seeing the patterns, right? We're not Octavia. She's a one of one talent, a genius, one of the foremost intellectuals of our time, period, right? And also, the rest of us can pay attention and put two and two together. And there's knowledge that we only know because of our positionalities and vantage points and so on, right? Based on all the things we've experienced, the things that we study, the things we know, the things we can perceive. And so I think sometimes the prophet language is like we're just waiting for somebody to come save us, but we are each other's harvest and all of that. We know that. But I think I really have come away with that too, that I'm nosy and I'm an intellectual, but also like this work matters. We all can identify what's going on. My job is to help people be critical thinkers. I know people think, not anybody here, but people think that professors can indoctrinate students. And I'm like, I can't get them to read the syllabus and not use ChatGPT. So, but what I would like folks to do is to be very clear about their own minds and what they believe in and what their perspectives are and how that can shift and change over time when you get new knowledge, right? And what I found in my almost 2 decades of teaching is that students are often disempowered. They are waiting for an answer. And I think that's because the adults around them are also waiting for an answer. But Octavia did not wait for answers. She sought them out. She struggled with knowledge and she produced things, right? And her perspective would shift when she got new information. And so her reading through her work and getting so kind of intimately close to her material really emphasizes that for me in particular. I believed it before, but now I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Vanessa, Voting Right Acts 1965. Oh, where'd she
No,
go? Did you want to ask a question? Okay.
maybe not.
Uh,
Nope.
Elvis.
Hey, thank you. And also, Susanna, thank you for being with us tonight. First time joining the group, and I had no idea about this book, so I'm glad I was able to make it here. You mentioned a couple of nonfiction, I guess, reviews or exploration of Octavia's work, but I was wondering, I know she's a one of one, absolutely, but now that she's been introduced more to people, are there any authors that maybe take inspiration from her that like that have taken some of her ideas and have them in their works? Maybe not necessarily the next torchbearer, but are we seeing more of an Afrofuturist take with some of their stuff? If it's even possible to like try to mimic or do what Octavia did.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe like her literary descendants, right? Folks who are like, I've read Octavia, I'm inspired. They're doing their own thing. There are many, because she really, her and Samuel Delaney and Stephen Barnes, they really were like the early trio. And then Charles Saunders, who wrote kind of fantasy, kind of Conan the Barbarian, but with Black folk on the continent. Um, they were the four for a long time. But N.K. Jemisin is one of my absolute top faves, top five. Like she does fantasy so well. She does science fiction too, but like I'm a fan, I love fantasy. So I love the Inheritance series, the Dream Blood duology. People don't read that enough. People need to
Yes,
read the
yes.
Dream Blood duology. It's fire.
Yes.
And of course the Broken Earth trilogy, right? She is
Yes.
won the Hugo 3 years in a row for that series, and she also won a MacArthur Genius Grant, just as Octavia did. Octavia was the first science fiction author to do so, and N.K. Jemisin, I think, is very much a literary descendant and just fun to read. Fun to read. Another author I love, non-binary author based out of UK, River Solomon. Their work is super dope too. I love An Unkindness of Ghosts, and The Deep. I know they have another book out that's more recent, but when I tell you I'm behind on everything, I'm behind. So
That
that's on
book,
the list.
that book is called Model Home.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw it in the bookstore
I
the other day and I have not picked it up, but yeah,
yeah,
and Rivers
yeah.
Song. They're
Rivers is one of my favorite art.
mm-hmm. Someone who is a contemporary of Octavia, and also a dear friend of hers is Nisi Shaw. And I would say Everfair. Everfair is a really interesting kind of steampunk, and I'm not even low key into steampunk like that, but it imagines an alternate Belgian Congo if they had like airships and other things at their disposal to fight the colonial powers. I mean, I could go on, but those are some folks to start with. So Nisi Shaw, um, I said River Solomon and N.K. Jemisin, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So good, so good. Okay, Vanessa is back with us. Go ahead, Vanessa.
I think Vanessa might be having an audio issue.
Do you want to put your question in the chat? You can do that. Oh, since your sound is not working. Sorry. Yeah, I've read all of River Solomon's book, The Deep and Unkindness of Ghosts, Sorrowland, and Model Home.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, Afro surreal,
Mm-hmm.
weird, creepy, dystopian,
Yeah.
strange, gothic horror. I love their mind. I love
Beautiful,
their
beautiful
mind.
prose. And again, I think as it was Elvis, I believe, like as they said, like nobody is Octavia. But I will say that when I read An Unkindness of Ghosts, I slammed that book shut. I was like, you might have lit a candle to Octavia while he was right. I don't know. Like it just felt like so indebted, not in a derivative kind of way, but in a like, wow. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. I said I'm gonna write the title in the chat. Definitely folks need to check that out. And my last question, kind of similar to a question someone else asked, but how do you think is the best way, those of us who consider ourselves Octavia's children in different ways, Octavia's brood, whether we're writers or artists or educators, what do you feel is the best way to honor her and continue her legacy in our work?
Oh, read her work, share her work, talk about the work, buy the work, borrow the work, share it with people. I think have, book clubs, conversations, all of that thing. And I'll also, let me read, if I can, read a little bit from the epilogue. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. Because Octavia really thought about her legacy. And I found this quote in one of her books, like commonplace books that she had in 1993, which is the same year that Parable of the Sower came out. So she wrote, thinking about my legacy, about the things I hope to leave behind when I die, ideas. I generate ideas for a living. Some of them are quite good. As it happens, my way of presenting my ideas is by way of writing science fiction, novels, and stories, articles, and giving talks. My books are most likely to last. They're like messages in bottles that I cast into a sea of humanity. There's no guarantee that they will ever be found and read by people able to make use of them. They are, if anything, beginning places. They might foster study in areas new to the finders. They might give the finders directions for behavior modification. They might give the finders something to react against and thus find new paths for thought and or action. So that's what she wanted us to do. I mean, all the other things too, but to really take the work in and be changed by it and then to move differently, to wrestle with it.
Mm, I love that. New paths for thoughts and actions.
Right?
Shout out to the new. Oh, that's
Yeah.
freaking brilliant. I love that so much. Um, I want to make sure that Vanessa had a chance to write her question because she was very much no. Hmm. Oh, yes, she did. She said, I guess Zoom doesn't want me to speak. Maybe for the best because I'm fairly introverted. Me too. I've been away from libraries events, so unfortunately I didn't read the book yet. More than eager to do now. You mentioned her hoarding behavior in the beginning, behavior that is often misunderstood and met with a lack of compassion. This is usually a result of trauma. Um, I agree with that. Can you speak to any additional trauma she experienced? And
Yeah,
then
I mean,
the next question is from Imania, which is, are you touring your book?
yes.
Okay.
So I'll answer Vanessa's question and then Imania's question. Um, yeah, I do think that again, I'm not that kind of doctor, but I do think that the keeping of everything, sometimes when I don't want to be like a pop psychologist, but sometimes when you don't have a lot, you hold on to what you have. You know what I mean? And I mentioned that she, won the MacArthur in 1995, and the MacArthur comes with a lot of money. In 1995, it came with $295,000 of unrestricted funds paid over 5 years, right? So think about it. In 1976, she got like an advance for like $1,250 or maybe $1,500. She was getting these small advances. And granted, yes, money moved differently in the 1970s and 80s, but you couldn't survive for years and years on $1,200, right? You could survive 1 year on that. She's from California. California is really expensive. She lived by herself. She was unpartnered. She did not have children. She came from humble roots. Her mother would help her financially, but again, her mother was a domestic. So poverty was a continuous trauma for a long time. And even when she won $300,000 almost, right? And at that point in her life is getting more lucrative advances. She, gets on with this agent who remains her agent for the rest of her life and after her death, right? So this agent is like, I'm trying to get you that coin. She's being brought places, she's being paid money and so on. All of her diary entries around money, they read the same. They read the same. The ones where she has money in the bank and she's bought a house, they read very similarly to the ones where she's like, I have to pawn my typewriter. She was so afraid of being poor, right? So that was a trauma, living in capitalism and not having these resources and then being told, well, how you're working, this is frivolous. You should get a real job. What do you mean you're a writer? Right. And she would tell people and she would write, in letters to friends and talking to her agent and different people, I don't think I can work a regular job. It's hard for me to sort of do a 9 to 5, interacting with the public or the expectations people have on me or the physical experiences that she went through because in the 1970s when she was a temp worker for most of that decade she was lifting heavy boxes, she was working in factories, she was cleaning office buildings, she was doing physical labor and that wore on her body for the rest of her life. Octavia died at 58, very young, right? After what looks like a stroke event, right? But for the preceding years, she was going through all kinds of health issues and she was not getting the medical care that she deserved. Not for lack of trying. She was going to the doctor, they give her one medicine, and then the side effects from that medicine would cost something. And then she'd have to take another medicine to, you see what I'm saying? So there are so many things that she experienced that negatively affected her. Yeah. And yes, I am on tour. Awkward segue, but yes, I'm out here talking about the book. I've been to New York already, but whenever I come back, I will let y'all know. And what's the next thing I'm doing? Miami Book Fair in November. I think November 23rd. I'm going to be on a panel with Nicholas Boggs, who just wrote that wonderful biography of James Baldwin. So, yeah, come see me wherever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that as well. I love James Baldwin.
Mhm.
So how does it feel to be for the book to be out in the world now? Like how, it's I know that I came out with kind of came out with a book last year, but it's nothing to this level, of course. But putting out a book
No
is so much
disclaimers. Okay.
it's so much work. And I was naive in thinking that once the book was out, my work is done. But actually, no, there's a whole nother type of labor that comes after the book is out because you have
Yeah.
to like talk about it with people and
Yeah.
make sure that it's getting in the right hands of like the people that you were thinking of when you wrote it and kind of not necessarily explaining to people what it is, but having conversations like this, which may feel like labor or may feel fun depending on the group. So like
Yeah.
how is it felt to be doing this tour? Because I saw your calendar and it was busy. So you've been doing a lot. And I know you said you're an extrovert, so maybe it's not as difficult. But how has it been?
It's not difficult. I am an extrovert, so I do get energized by others. But at the same time, it is a lot of FaceTime. Although I love this, I love y'all. I'm happy to be here. Very happy. And I've had so many interviews too. It's always dope when folks are plugged in and we are excited and stuff. I've been places where people are asking me questions. I'm like, you don't even know who Octavia Butler is. Why am I here? This is painful. But for the most part, it's been really wonderful conversations. But yeah, it is its own job. And a thing that being in her archive really disabused me of too. And I think maybe because, I started out, I'm a professor, right? And I've published other books. I published an academic book, and I've also done stuff, with the Crunk Feminist Collective, of which I'm a member. And so we would do things together. Now I'm just out here by myself, but we would be doing things together. And, in reading Octavia's archive, she was really savvy about the business of writing. though she was broke for a good chunk of her career, she was like, you got to do this. She'd be employing her first agent, who she had a love-hate relationship with. She'd be
Mm.
like, girl, send me out more places. Where's my money? I want to talk to this person and that person. And it wasn't until she went with a smaller press, it was like an imprint of Warner Books, Grand Central Publishing, that they started sending her out. This is the 1980s, 1990s, that she starts being sent out on tours. She was not sent out on tours before. When she published Kindred, it was like, okay, that was not no instant bestseller. It was like, all right, now I got to go write another book, right? So I think I had a kind of naive, like, okay, I'm gonna write my book and I'm just gonna, it's like you need to hire a publicist, sis. You got to work at this. I'm like, I just want to share my work. You know, when you see like bestsellers and stuff, people have worked real hard to get there, not just in the writing of the book, but in the resources to uh get the attention, right? So we had a publicist for our book Feminist AF, the Guide to Crushing Girlhood, that Brittany Cooper and Chanel Craft Tanner and I wrote. And we had a tour. It was during COVID, so we were all like masked up and traveling and scared. Um, but this situation is different, not because it's fancy or anything like that, but like I'm really because it's me as a solo author being like, okay, I want to make sure not to put all my business out there, but I had to be like, I want to come to New York and talk about my book. My publisher was like, I mean, I guess. What you mean? I want to go talk to people about it. People love Octavia. It's not even like my ego. It's like, do you know who this book is about?
Yeah.
But it's a
Yeah.
capitalist enterprise, right? So you really have to advocate for yourself. I know, like when you put your work out there, I'm sure anybody who's an artist, you're like, okay, I sculpt. I just want to share my sculpture with somebody. Now you got to do all this business of the gallery and the this and the that and putting your stuff on. And do you sell it on Etsy? Do you what? And sometimes you just want to do your work and share it like in a very kind of straightforward way, but oh, the capitalism of it all, you know?
The capitalism of it all. Ah!
And yet we have to eat
Um,
and pay the bills. They want the rent on the first every month.
yes, they do.
They do
Without fail.
without
Oh
fail.
my gosh. Sometimes they be asking for it on the 31st. I'm like, hello, slow
Let me
down.
get paid first, my Lord, you know. And I
My
also
landlord does
saw,
that. He'll be dropping off the rent bill on like the 30th. I'm like, relax, relax.
well, you got money in the
Um,
bank for real. And I
yes,
see there was a question about the rights. Her
yes. Who owns
family
the
owns
rights to
the
her books?
rights. Her family, the estate of Octavia Butler, which is run by her family.
Okay,
Hmm.
nice. Um, nice, nice, nice. Okay.
Oh, you're
So now that
muted.
so one thing I wanted to say before we close out is also thank you for that whole thing you wrote about Kindred, because I'm an Octavia Butler stan, but Kindred I always consider to be my least favorite novel by her.
Ooh, do tell. Yeah.
Y'all
Most
don't
people won't
stop,
be real about that.
don't listen, don't get mad at me, y'all. But I had to kind of like force myself to finish it. He said, wait a damn minute. I was like, why is she
Not
putting
we were
us
just
through?
vibing. Oh no. Mm.
Yo, the trauma of Kindred? I was like, why, Octavia? Like, what is the point of this? Why are you putting us through this? And I really love that you went into detail about all the books, but especially that one because it helped me to develop a whole new appreciation for it.
Mm.
Because I was like, what is the point? Like, why are you putting her through this?
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's a hard
know,
read. Yeah,
it's
I
so
can speak to
hard.
that too because I get it. It's not my least favorite, but I know when people are like, "Oh yeah, it's my introduction," because oftentimes it is the person's introduction to Octavia for a good reason. It's a beautiful book, right? It's a hard book, but also if you are kind of iffy on science fiction, it's not science fiction, it's fantasy, right? Octavia was very clear. There's no science in it. It's a grim fantasy, and it is grim, right? There's time travel, but
So
there's no
grim.
time machine, right? There's no like, you know. So just quickly, I'll say two things. One, I get it. Like I, for many years, stopped teaching kindred because I would, as someone who teaches at PWIs, my students would be like, Rufus, oh my God, oh, can he be saved? And I'd be like, Rufus, of all the people to be worried about, I'm like, what's going on with Hagar? Can we,
Right.
can we talk about Hagar? She going through it.
Please.
Damn, somebody. But also I'm teaching young people and they're identifying with young character. Okay. Side note, teaching the graphic novel adaptation, that is what I like to stick to unless I'm doing an Octavia Butler seminar and then we might look at both. You know what I mean? Because we're doing a deep dive. But it was rough. I was like, what you mean, Rufus? You crying big real tears over okay.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. But when I, really started to delve in, because that was actually the first chapter I wrote when I was pitching this book, because kindred is the thing that everybody, reads. So I spent a lot of time thinking about kindred and her inspiration for it. So I'll quickly say that when she was a college student at Pasadena City College in the 1960s, she was a member of her Black Student Union. And she had a homeboy, classmate, who was really well versed on Black history. Now, keep in mind, when she's a college student, there was one Black Studies course that was offered at her college, right? This is when Black Studies is being institutionalized at like San Francisco State and stuff like that, right? So she had read Black literature because her mother, when she would clean houses, would like take stuff home or whatever. She was introduced to James Baldwin as a child, like his work, right? But she wasn't formally studying African American literature because it just wasn't being offered in school. So she takes the class and then she has these homies and they're just like sitting around like politicking, like, oh, I read this. And so she had this friend and he knew so much and he would just be kind of holding court. And he was doing that one day and he was like, our ancestors, they were weak. Our ancestors were weak. Black people haven't gone as far as they need to go because we had weak ancestors, and our elders, they're weak too. And in order for us to really progress as a people, we'd have to get rid of all of them. But I know we couldn't do it because I would have to kill my own parents first. I'm paraphrasing, but he did say that part. So that stuck in Octavia's mind. She was like, I know you fucking lying. So she just, wanted to be like, but she understood where he was coming from. By the time she had that conversation, she's in her late teens, early 20s. She had already experienced I'm upset with my family members because I feel like they're capitulating to white supremacy, right? She wouldn't have used that language as a kid, but when she would go go cleaning with her mother, right? Sometimes her mother would be like, you have to come with me, you can't stay at home, I have a babysitter, whatever. And she would go with her mother to clean houses and she would see how her mother was treated by the white folk who she worked for. They would be disrespecting her, they would be saying racist things, they'd be, talking about black folk. And her mother just kind of took it. She was like just sweeping and mopping and doing the thing, right? And one time she confronted her mother about it. I write about it in the book. And her mother is like, what's going on? Like, why do you look like that? And she's like, I will never be like you. What you do is terrible, right? She said that at 12. And then when she saw how hurt her mother was, she had to interrogate what she said, right? She didn't get a whooping. Her mother just was deeply hurt. And then she had to go through. So by the time, fast forward to undergrad, and she has this homeboy who's like, we got to kill him. She's like, wait a minute. You feel bad because of your internalized white supremacy. And rather than trying to attack white supremacy as an institution, you want to knock off your grandparents. So kindred is for that man and for her other fellow baby boomers who were like, if I went back in time, you couldn't tell me anything. I know black folk, many of us, especially if we're descendants of formerly enslaved Africans, have had this conversation. Oh, if it were me, oh, I would Nat Turner them. No, you wouldn't.
No,
Many
you
people would.
wouldn't. Sit
Most people
down.
wouldn't. Sit down. You don't even want to talk to your boss about a raise. You don't even want to break up with the person that you're not supposed to be with. You afraid of
Whew.
conflict. Leave that person alone, right?
Yeah.
Talking about you going to Nat Turner people. Nat Turner and his comrades, they killed everybody.
They killed babies in the crib. Everybody. You have to be about that life. Most people are not about that life. And it's not because they are weak, right? So, what Kindred is trying to do is to show that survival is not sexy, that resistance is usually not sexy. It's really
Oof.
practical, it's unglamorous. It might look like staying alive. It might look like your family, your partner has been sold away from you, and that's devastating, and you choose to love again. Your child has been wrenched from you,
Mm.
and you decide to parent another child that you did not birth. That
Yes.
might be your resistance. It might be slowly grinding up some glass just a little bit, maybe half of an eighth of a teaspoon, just a little bit, and just putting it in the soup every day. Just a little. I'm not saying it's a recipe. I'm just saying people did that. Okay, don't try to quote me now. I'm too cute to go to jail. But maybe doing that every day for 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know why his stomach is cut up like that. It's unclear to me. He can't hold anything down. I don't know why the crops are on fire. Who knows? Oh, yeah, I've had these children. None of them lived to infancy. People were committing infanticide. They were finding teas that were abortive, medicines. People did all kind of stuff. It wasn't all Nat Turner. Not to shame Nat Turner. Everybody had to get in where they fit in, but most people were not doing that. So Octavia did a lot of research to be like, my family, I'm extremely proud. She came to that point where she was like, I'm extremely proud, right? So she writes that, in her journal, like, I am the daughter of a maid and a bootblack. Like, I'm standing on the shoulders of people who had to endure all these things. And so,
Mm.
but it's like a Faustian bargain, right? Because the thing about Kindred is that Dana looks like Hagar and she looks like Rufus because she is a product of both those people. And if that's your ancestry, it, like
Yeah.
I love watching Finding Our Roots. And when I go on, watching it and you see the Black folk, those of us who, descendants of formerly enslaved folks, they'll be like, yeah, it's your great grandfather. And they show some like slave owner and they're like,
Yeah.
if you don't have to be
Yeah.
thin skinned, you don't have to be wealthy, it's just many of our experiences, right? And so
Yeah.
she really wanted to attend to that, to disabuse people of like, you had to be a maroon and you had to like lead. Maybe, maybe. Like I'm Jamaican, but my people were not maroons. They were the folks who resisted in other ways. And that's
Yeah.
something to be knowledgeable of and to not disparage. And so I hear you. Kindred is a hard one for me. If I'm just like, I want to read Octavia, I'm not gonna pick up Kindred, real talk. Like
Yeah.
it's not the one for me in that way, but it's such an important book. And I wish people would really read it with that, like, it's supposed to be a cautionary tale for anybody, white, black, brown, male, female, non-binary, gender, non-conforming, however you identify in the world. There is something for you in this book because we're all imbricated in this system.
Mm.
And it takes more than an individual person. That's part of Dana's hubris. She thinks she can go back and she can save Rufus. Save Rufus? He's
Right.
already lost by the time she meets him.
Yes. Yes.
And what does that say? It's not anything about her, it's about this larger system, right? Because Rufus is being socially conditioned to move the way he moved. He was basically made into a sociopath. He didn't have to respect any of those people that he was raised with. He was raised with all those black folk, but he owned them. So he doesn't have to respect
Yes.
them, right? That's a system. He is working as he should, as the system has designed. So what about humanity? What about even Kevin? He's like, oh, slavery's
Mhm.
not that bad. They got food and not too much work. He's disabused of that too. So even the white liberal who might
Yeah.
the book and be like, I would go back in time and do, no, you wouldn't. You would not. Your great grandma
Yeah.
didn't do it, and you wouldn't do it either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I really, really appreciate you bringing in that context to that book because I was like, why is Octavia putting Dana through this? Like, will she get any reprieve will she be able to save herself?
Yeah.
But she will not, but she can't save herself without saving Rufus, right? And I was like, I hate that she is trapped in this, so I think that realistic element in the midst of fantasy
Right.
is what made me
It's
kind of
uneasy. It's
made me
uneasy.
upset because
Yeah.
Dana was going through it. I was like, give
She
her a
was
break.
going through it. The showering with the bag, to me, Kindred is one of the most terrifying. It's a horror novel.
It is. It's horrific. It's
You're just
horrific.
sleeping and you can be back and answer.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
But bringing in that context, especially in this age of I am not my ancestors nonsense that people be sent in.
Yeah, I'm not my
It,
ancestors either because they are way stronger than me. There's some stuff that they
yeah.
went through. I need aspirin and antibiotics. Like my great grandmother had 16 children.
Oh.
I'm not that lady. She was on a different level. That takes a
Yeah.
different kind of strength. Yeah,
Yeah.
I ain't got it.
And I feel like Kindred is such an excellent being that I have this context that you've given us. Kindred is such an excellent response to that idea because
Mhm.
you know what? Let's just say that you got caught out there in Octavia's fantastical horrific story. What would you do? How would you survive? Like that survival strategy? And I was like, you know what? I would be dead. Straight up. I would let Rufus die because I'm not saving your ass. So if that means I don't exist,
And that would be it. That would be a wrap. Or
that was my story would be 2 pages long. Like,
she
oh,
tried to
that's
include, have a black male lead character. She like, oh, he gonna get killed immediately because someone's gonna question his manhood. She's thinking about the masculinist Black Power era that, that's where her friend was in, right? Like, oh, I'm
yes,
better than she like, he gonna get killed immediately. He's going to want to square up on somebody, right?
so brilliant.
Stereotypical, but to think about patriarchy, right? And there's something about Dana being a Black woman, right? The woman part is important too. Keep in mind when in the beginning, before all the stuff happens, Kevin's like, "Can you type up my novel? Why am I typing your novel up? Why are you not typing my novel up? We both
Right,
writers. Oh, but you're my
right.
wife, so you're supposed to. You don't get out of right."
Scram, beat it.
Right? So
Yeah,
it's patriarchy and white supremacy together, right? The intersections of these systems of power that make Dana more apt to adapt, unfortunately, because she has been oppressed on all the sides.
yeah, yeah.
And that's not
Absolutely
a
one.
commentary on her, that's a commentary on us and the society.
Yeah, most definitely. And I know that we're past the time. I have one last question,
Sure.
and it's kind of your fault because you just made me think of it. But I'm curious and I guess this is something we could look up ourselves, but considering how political her work was when it came out, and we have a sense of that now, did people have a sense of that then when it was
Her
first
work more
published?
generally or of specific works?
Um, I guess like Kindred or even like the Parable series. Like when they first came out, like did people understand that she was writing political work at the time, or did they just see her as a sci-fi writer?
When Kindred came out, it did not make a big splash, but you know who took it up? The gender studies professors. Gender studies professors love Kindred. They love to bring
Oh,
it in, right? The college professors, the English professors love, they would bring her in and started teaching that book really early on. It's her only book that really was not out of print for any, you know, big stretch of time, right? By the time so people understood this to be political, but it was in some ways lost in the sea of science fiction and fantasy because yes, Octavia was prolific. She published 12 works during her lifetime, but when you look at other science fiction writers, this is something she felt very like thing about. She didn't publish that much in quotations in comparison to them. Some people might come out with 3, 4 books a year. She wasn't doing that. She was doing in the late 70s, early 80s, a book a year, and then it's sort of, every few years a book. And then every 5 years a book, right? Um, and so there's just there's a glut of that work, right? So her work was lost really until she was able to sort of gain more popularity over time. By the time the Parable series comes out, she's already made a big name, for herself. And folks are asking her, like, why are you setting these books in the near future, right? Because Parable of the Sower is set in 2024 and beyond, which is only 30 years in the future. And so people were very clear, like, oh, you're making a political statement based on the fact that you're making it in near future. It's not her only near future. Clay's Ark is also set in the 20 early 21st century, right? It's just not as a popular novel. Whereas Parable of the Sower, these are things that are being reviewed in the New York Times and so on. So folks were very clear, like, well, why would you have it be a near future? And she would say, because it could happen in 30 years if we don't deviate, if we don't pivot, if we don't, to use her language, modify our behavior, then in the 2020s we might see these things happen, and here we are, right? um so folks understood her to be political, and that had different effects depending on where she was in her life. So last thing I'll say is, when she was in school and taking writing workshops and so on, she had a professor that was like, don't write Black characters in science fiction because it's just a distraction. It's just a distraction. The real issues that you want to talk about when you have Black characters, they just focus on race. So she wrote about this in an essay called The Lost Races of Science Fiction. Um, in which she's like, actually, green men, Black men, whatever it is, like, science fiction is and fantasy is a reflection of the questions and anxieties and concerns we have, right, as a society. And to quote one of her colleagues, science fiction is descriptive, it's not prescriptive. That's Ursula Le Guin, right? It's describing us. The play is about us, okay? It's us. So, but again, it was a discomfort with Blackness, right? Because it was her, Samuel Delaney, Stephen Barnes. It was a few people. And oftentimes when Black characters were included in science fiction and fantasy, it was just so whack, right? And here she is writing Black and brown characters, queer characters, all kinds of characters in the full range of their humanity or alienness, whatever, because sometimes they're aliens too. And the aliens are fully developed. Those Oankali characters, they're not flat characters. They're like, have whole interior lives, right? So, yeah, people understood her to be doing political work for sure. Um, yeah.
Awesome. I'm just writing Nalo Hopkinson's name in the chat.
Yes.
Another really great
Super dope.
Afrofuturist, speculative
Mhm.
Black writer, Caribbean, Canadian, Brown Girl in the Ring, Midnight Robber, really, really excellent
Mhm.
books. Um, awesome. Yeah, did you like it? Yes, I loved it too. It's one of my faves. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I could talk to you for like an hour more. I'm have so many other questions about teaching Octavia and so on like that, but it's good to leave people wanting more. And when you come to New York, please let us at the library know.
Yes.
Feel free to come through here.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
book talks here all the time.
Yes.
And yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for
Thank you
writing
for
this
having
book.
me.
Thank you for giving us insight into Octavia's mind in this way. This I feel like this is a beautiful tribute to her. This book. I feel like it's another way for us to honor her, and this has just been super wonderful. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. And just follow me on Instagram or other social media, and you can see
What's
what
your Instagram handle?
I'll write it in the chat. It's Susie May is my
Susie May.
Maye. So that is my Instagram, and just my name on Facebook is like Susana Morris, PhD. I got a TikTok, but I ain't doing nothing over there. But I'm a be better. And I will be. I think somebody wrote something about the DMV. I was there, but I'll be back in the spring. I think in February I'll be at Georgetown University talking at their Ella Joe Baker lecture. I think February 4th. So it'll be on my social
Oh,
media and all of that. So I hope to see y'all around. And thank you for spending your Sunday night with me.
yes. Thank you so much to everyone who came through for this amazing conversation. If you haven't read the book, please go read it immediately. And please read all of Octavia's books as well. And if you're a creative, if you're an artist, activist, organizer, healer, whatever your positive obsession is, please continue to pour yourself into it, no matter what society is saying. Please be encouraged that there will definitely be someone out there who will be touched and moved and inspired by your work. Like my positive obsession was Black women's literature, and that's how I landed here, running the Free Black Women's Library and having this space and being with you all. So you never know where that issue is going to lead you, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to wish everyone an awesome Sunday evening, and I hope I see you next month for our next conversation. Bye, y'all. Thank you. Doo-doo-doo.